Hello people, I am MugenGlider, as I am known on the wiki.
Oh, goddamn chin.
And I am doing a deck profile on the new G-Tachi build from Reckless Rampage. Now, Tachikaze is a clan I've been very close to. I've always wanted to play since I started. I had a Tachi deck. I started with Narcomic, but I got my Tachi deck like way off, like soon after Raptor Kernel. But in the last 2 years, like, you could ask anyone and they'll tell you that Tachikaze has been dominated by just its archetype Ancient Dragon. So the original Tachikaze was kind of out of the picture for such a long time. So when the Reckless Rampage was announced and it featured Tachikaze and we knew it was going to be a generic deck, like, for the whole clan, I was super hyped because this is a clan that I just really love for its mechanic, its aesthetics. I can never, like, get into Ancient Dragons, but I always wanted a regular normal Tachikaze deck to build on, and it's been on such a long time. So seeing the new stuff, it's very satisfying for me. So let's go to the deck profile. So as I said, it's a G-Tachi build. So our ace unit in this case is Emperor Dragon Gaia Emperor. Emperor Dragon Gaia Emperor is our main grade 3, a triple rare from Reckless Rampage. Now his ability. Now, in my opinion, with Reckless Rampage, it's kind of all the decks in it really were just going for more of an emphasis on the deck, on the original clan mechanics, their strengths, just making it even more ridiculous in a way. And Gaia Emperor is kind of that because he essentially turns whatever he selects into Ancient Dragon and Guanagorg, which is pretty good. Like, so his on-strike skill is that Counterblast 1, he has the Ultimate Clause where you use superior claw units beforehand, so up to 2. And then you come to separate rearguard circles, and you give them the ability where when they're retired, you can call them back to rearguard circles. This ability, like a lot of all Tachikaze abilities, turns your usual minuses into you don't minus at all, and you can generate more attacks in this way. Really, it's just a bigger version of Ancient Dragon and Guanagorg. This ability, however, also pulls up the interesting combos as well. Like, I could technically repeat on-call abilities or keep using the star's abilities this way. It's overall a very versatile ability, and that ultimate clause on it just makes this a very easy to use stride. Like, cards like Yasue, Asha wish they had this clause. They wish they had it. But that's probably one of the reasons why Gaia Emperor is considered one of the best on striders. His GB2 is pretty disappointing. I mean, Engorge, and he gains 5k in critical. I mean, I guess he puts himself in Engorge state, but pretty much you're never gonna use that ability because they're actually better Engorges than Gaia Emperor. But as a strider, his on-stride skill is excellent. For our second grade 3 in this case, we are running 3 Rage Dragon Tyrannobrute. Now, a good thing about Reckless Rampage was all the backup bosses were all capable, but Tyrannobrute, I will say that Tyrannobrute has actually won me a lot of games because in the finish game, having the ability, his ability is that when you ride him actually, you can Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1. And search the top 5 cards for with Engorge. Which is handy because he can also search out for Gaia Emperor because Gaia Emperor has Engorge. That ability is more so leniency when you ride the wrong boss foe. But the real reason is Tyrannobute's second rearguard ability is that he can Engorge any amount of units, and he can gain 5k for each Engorged unit. So I can power him up to insane numbers and just wreak havoc in the late game, or even during the mid game. I can calm him down, engorge as many units as I need to, and revive them with Gaia Emperor, so I can net more attacks or net more effects. Details on Engorge is actually that. With Engorge, it's when the unit attacks, and you can eat up as many units as you want, and your unit enters an engorged state, where it gains the effect. But yeah, Tyrannobrute is actually just a very versatile grade 3, and that's something you'll find with a lot of the Tachikaze front row units. Overall, he's a very good rare card, and he doesn't lose much compared to any other grade 3 out there for this deck. Now to the grade 2 lineup. We have free Beam Dragon Apatomaser. Apatomaser is the Glimmer Breath clone for Gaia Emperor, and what makes Apatomaser useful is actually the fact that Gaia Emperor, by reviving Apatomaser technically with Gaia Emperor's ability, I can technically repeat Apatomaser's ability again, which is pretty handy. It leads into some interesting loop combos. Apatomaser's ability is that you can blast 1, Soul Blast 1 when he's called to rearguard. He gains plus 2k for that turn, and he can then engorge your units, so he gains 5k and draw. Now, the 5k is... It makes sure that Apatomaser will always hit decent numbers. The draw is the handy part in that you'll gain something back. And depending on what you sacrifice, you probably didn't lose anything anyways. It's basically just a way of drawing more cards. I use them in free copies because I feel like at any more copies you wouldn't really need this effect that often. But he's good for setting up your field for later turns. And overall, he's an handy card. His Soul Blast clause is actually mitigated thanks to another card in the deck, as we'll see later. Anyways, next is 4 Blade Dragon Jigsawsaurus. Jigsawsaurus is the Amber clone of Tachikaze, and some would say Jigsawsaurus is arguably one of the best. He makes a lot of other Amber clones just look inferior. Like, I play Camaro and Gear Chronicle, and so I played Amber and Twilight Arrow. Jigsawsaurus... Number 1, Jigsawsaurus... Now, Jigsawsaurus' ability is that Counterblast 1, when he attacks with a boost, you can sacrifice one of your units, which is normal Tachikaze, so that can translate into something else. It's not an engorge ability, by the way. But, when he does that, he gains 5,000 power, and you can choose one of your opponent's rear guys to retire. Shut up, guys. And you can choose any unit to retire, so he's like Twilight Arrow in that sense. In fact, I think he can retire grade 3s even. So he actually has more range than even Twilight Arrow, Amber, and most of his clones. So he's selective and he has a large range to choose from. And even better, when he hits, he's going to be mostly hitting for 21k. He will probably hit your opponent's units for about 21k, and when he hits, he'll draw a card. So, overall, if he hits, you actually gain more than what you lost in. Fuck you guys. Anyways, so basically you'll draw cards, you'll retire units. Overall, he's a versatile unit. He'll just impact your opponent's field in many ways, and you might be in a better state. Funny thing, you can actually technically sacrifice his booster, I think, and he'll gain the 5k, which is enough for it to hit your opponent's Vanguard, but he'll still net the effects. Worth considering occasionally. In addition, we run free Explosive Dragon Sarcoblaze. Sarcoblaze is a good card. Like, when you can engorge him when he attacks, and he essentially becomes Silent Tom with a 9k base. Your opponent can't guard grade 0 units during his attack. As an engorger, he's handy. But I feel like his ability isn't always needed. Like, he's good enough for pushing damage, and he can close out a game, but you might not always have the board state to really use him. Sometimes you can't even really engorge the whole field. Engorge like safely without impacting your overall gameplay. And that's why, in my opinion, Sarcoblaze is worth using at free copies, but four you can run 4, but I feel like it's stretching it. Overall, he's good for finishing games and he's decent for pushing games. And Tachikaze, as it is. As for our last grade 2, I'm running 2 Accel Tigers, the 12k tackle. Now, 12k tackle doesn't seem like much for the most part. I mean, it needs to attack the Vanguard to gain plus 3k, which means honestly it's just giving you an ability, allows you the opportunity to attack your opponent's Vanguard, but it's overall just a 5k value. You could just attack an instant and you probably would get the same value. Accel Tiger's uses come in handy in other situations, and you can still revive him via Gaia Emperor. This is actually a topic I'd rather cover later, but 12k Tiger is always a decent unit. Now, if you... So that's my grade 2 lab so far. That's my grade 2 lab as is. For grade 1s, we run Savage Heroine. Now you can actually make an argument to run Styracolor, the other PG, but Tachikaze is actually a clan known for being very combo boss heavy, and that when you lose your combo boss, you're pretty much losing a lot of your recyclability. You're losing access to a lot of your... You're actually going to minus more. So having the ability to unflip as often as you can will always be handy. Circle is good for an emergency engorger who goes back to your hand, but he calls a combo boss, and overall, I'm just personally not a fan of him, but I think using him in this deck, you could give it a try. It's worth giving him a try, really. Some would argue that he's better. We run 4 Prism Bird, who is the strategist of our deck. Prism Bird is... Or I say aesthetically, he's my favorite strategist. Like, I love the design. And seeing as it's a strat deck, Gaia Emperor, he searches out Gaia Emperor, and he lets you strat more consistently. It goes without saying that you run Prism Bird at 4 copies. Like, why wouldn't you run him at 4 copies? For another grade 1, we run 4 Cold Dragon Freezernyx? Yeah, Freezernyx. Freezernyx is a hilarious card. He's exclusive to Gaia Emperor, and when he leaves a rearguard circle during your turn to drop zone, you can soul charge 1, counter charge 1, and you can give it another unit plus 2k. That is good because, as I've said, Tachikaze is a resource-heavy clan. It goes through the resources and relies on it so much. Your combo boss is your recyclability, your utility. But it becomes ridiculous because you can revive Freezernyx. So basically, as long as you can keep him coming back to the field, your combo boss will always be pretty. You always have access mostly to counter charge. And soldier can come in handy every once in a while. You can also give it plus 2k to another unit, create another column, and wreak havoc. In fact, it works well with Accel Tiger because Freezernyx and Accel Tiger creates a 21k column. Situational, but it can happen. And honestly, I'd argue that Freezernyx is just a ridiculously good grade 1, though. To be honest, I have that opinion of a lot of counter charges. Like, I still think to this day Dark Milk Chameleon is ridiculous. But for Tachikaze, pretty good. To fill out our grade 1s, I run 2 Savage Heroine. Honestly, the last space in grade 1s for Tachikaze deck, honestly, I'd say any of it would be considered borderline filler. Like, Beam Terror could give plus 3k to another unit. Decent. It can net you some good columns. You can run Sonic Noah because he's AK Vanilla, which is also okay. Sky Terror is fodder. Sky Terror is, in the end, a fodder unit that will go back to your hand when he's retired before Combo Boss 1. Which would be okay if, let's remember, when we're using Gaia Emperor, who turns anything into fodder anyways. And again, Sky Terror costs a Combo Boss. You won't always have that Combo Boss to work with. Sky Terror is actually there as a oddball booster. Like, she can reach like 9k, 12k, depending on your formation and such. Or she can actually be a lone attacker. And this comes down to another unit in the deck, which is actually our starter. Actually, yeah, that's starter. I usually do starters with the grade 0s. So I'll get to it later. For our starter, we run... Too many, man. Not much space. Anyways, for our starter, we run Baby Camaro. Prior to Reckless Rampage, I would say the standard starter for Tachikaze was Dragon Egg, if you're playing generic. But Baby Camaro is a useful starter because it lets you search through the deck for a grade 1 when he's retired and gives that grade 1 plus 3k. Which is pretty handy for Combo Boss 1. So I could also bring out Savage Heroine, and she'll become a likely 12k attacker if I have a unit engorged, which is okay. Or Freezernyx because I want to set my unflipping engine. Another thing is like I could use Gaia Emperor's ability on Baby Camara to revive him, and then sacrifice him again to get more units that I need. It's a bit heavy on the counter boss, but again, Tachikaze has been pretty efficient recently, and Baby Camara overall is a very versatile starter. So for triggers, we run 4 heal triggers because it's pretty much the standard. You could deviate, but I pretty much always go for 4 heals because I guess I don't like deviating that much from that standard. We have 4 Cannon Fire Dragon Parasaulauncher, who's the personal critical of Gaia Emperor. You soul charge him, getting 5k and draw. If you're playing Gaia Emperor, you are pretty much going to run this. He fuels your soul, he gives you 5k, he gives you a draw. He's basically an in-case attacker or booster as well that doesn't really lose you anything except for 10k shield, maybe. Assuming what you draw isn't you consider less than the 10k shield. But overall, versatile unit. I run 4 Black Cannon Tiger. Technically speaking, Ancient Dragon Dinodile is the most optimal creature because he unflips damage, and I cannot deny that point. I actually am running this because I am out of Ancient Dragon Dinodiles. I have a friend who plays 2 Ancient Dragon decks, and he took all of them, so I decided that I can compromise because this deck has enough counter charge that I can get away with it. I actually never really used Dinodile that much myself when I had it. And I am running the formerly elusive draw trigger Cannon Fire Dragon Sledge Angler. Like, this thing was a myth to a lot of people. Now, Tachikaze actually got a good stand trigger this set with a good effect. But unfortunately, I will still have to say this, Tachikaze has some of the worst synergy with stand triggers. Because in the end, you're sacking most of your field to get your abilities. And this is extremely apparent with some of your G units. So, either the stand trigger has a good effect, there is a problem in the fact that you're not really using it at all with stand effects, which is pretty bad. As for the draw trigger itself, Tachikaze is a heavy setup client. Like, you will need the field to pull off any abilities. Any draw power you can get so that it helps your ability to maintain a good field to use is important in my opinion. You can run more crits if you want, like 12 crit, 4 heals is always a decent lineup, but I'm not a fan of it generally speaking. So I'm going to be running this lineup for pretty much my deck for most of my decks I present. Except for maybe OTT, like we all know about OTT, how they draw too much at times. So that's the main deck done. Now let's get to the genius. Now the G-Unit deck, Tachikaze G-Unit deck is, in my opinion, most of the G-Unit deck's problem is that in a way, they kind of fulfill very selective roles, and in fact, art on hits require sacrifices, which only with Gaia Emperor became more usable, but before I wouldn't really say they were that great. But they're workable. In my deck, I run 2 Archraiders. He's not 2 Archraiders. When he attacks, you retire one of your units. He gains 5k, and when he hits, you can retire units. Decent with Gaia Emperor because you can sack a unit, bring it back, and depending on what it is, you can do a huge amount of loops. And when you hit it, you get retired, which is always nice. Tachikaze was never had retire prior to Archraider. Of course, he's in any of Tachikaze's deck, he's not as great in my opinion, but for what it's worth, he's versatile in this build because of Gaia Emperor. I run 1 explosive destructive equipment Hammer-Jewalt. Hammer-Jewalt is strange. So his ability is that when he attacks, you can engorge units, and if he's engorged, he gains plus 3k. That's usually irrelevant, because it'll be like usually 29 base himself. And if you engorge 2, you can retire 1 front row. The only times I feel like Hammer-Jewalt is better than Archraider is where you want a retire for sure. You feel like your opponent won't intercept, or you feel like you'll get rid of intercept for sure. Or you want to sack 2 units at the same time. In a way, Hammer-Jewalt is actually an emergency strike when you don't have another unit to engorge your own units, so you can retire them and bring them back to net effects. Other than that, I would say Hammer-Jewalt is really a average stride, and he's only in the deck as a failsafe. Good design, but I do like the design. In this deck, we run 4 Absolute Rule of Gaia Dogma. Gaia Dogma is the G persona of the deck, and what a G persona! He truly suits his name. He's counterblast free, he has no counterblast cost, and when he attacks, you can use the Engorge skill. When you engorge, if I remember, 3 units, you may pay the persona blast cost where you flip a copy of him, and that if you engorge 3 units, he can extend Battleland, which decent. It's not great for persona cost, but in the case where you engorge 5 units, which is basically your whole field, which necessitates that you have a whole field, Gaia Dogma gains the ability to, after his battle, his drive check goes down by 1, but he can restand. So Gaia Dogma alongside Chrono Dragon Next Stage are among the only GS I remember that can drive check 5 times in total. In Gaia Dogma's case, well, he comes with a heavy setup condition, which is only mitigated because of Gaia Emperor's secondary ability. And you'll net 2 more attacks. In my personal experience with Gaia Dogma, sometimes you actually don't get a chance to really use him, because sometimes you won't have that field to work with, and you won't have enough cards in your hand to even fill up the field to even get him to restand. Fire Guards is really not easy for Tachikaze, despite how recyclable Tachikaze is as a client. But as a finisher, Gaia Dogma is truly a fearsome threat. Like you'll most likely get a unit back, and you can put trigger effects on that unit. Gaia Dogma himself swings for 46k, which is unprecedented compared to other G units. And he has no counterblast cost, which means he doesn't even get in the way of your counterblast efficiency in the deck. He's not perfect, but he definitely is a massive threat that Tachikaze now possesses. But I feel like he only really works in Gaia Emperor. To round out this deck, we have 1 GR Destructive Tyrant Twintempest. When I saw this card come out, I thought, number one, I love the artwork, like the whole concept of just pure destruction that comes with it. But its actual effects, I found it's interesting that Tachikaze got a unit that can retire the whole field. So like, this ability is Counterblast 2, Soul Blast 2, and choose 3 rear guards and retire them. At the end of the battle, this unit attack the Vanguard. You may pay a cost. If you do, retire all rear guards of all fires. Essentially a Tempest Bolt Dragon. The notion that Tachikaze would get a unit that can essentially destroy the whole field is amazing. Currently, as far as GS go, only this and Chronos Command Revolution can annihilate a whole field fairly easily, but Revolution does it when it strikes. Twintempest, on the other hand, does it after battle, and that presents, in truth, a lot of problems with him. I mean, sure, he'll retire a lot of units, which is great when your opponent has massed a lot of units, and they'll lose a lot because of this. But the timing of the ability is an issue, because even if I can revive my units after the cost or the retire, I can't apply trigger effects because this ability activates after the attack itself. So basically my trigger effects, if my opponent nullifies it, they go to waste. So if I want to clinch a game, Twintempest is kind of a poor option. And he himself requires a bit of stuff as well. His cost isn't exactly cheap either. And overall, sometimes I feel like he's disappointing because of this. It's kind of a shame actually. I really do love the whole concept, but overall, Twintempest just is a bit of disappointment. Sometimes you use him and he'll just fail you overall. Honestly, mostly use him when you need to get rid of full field and you can afford to lose trigger checks. And this is actually a problem with the Tachikaze deck in the fact that all your G units to finish a game require a lot of setup. But I do feel that thanks to Gaia Emperor, all these effects do work out in the end, and it just harkens back to how Tachikaze always works. Just don't burst control clans like Wing Joker. It's not good. That's where it gets blown back. So overall, that's the Tachikaze G deck. It's been a very entertaining deck to use. Very refreshing. I'm glad to see his clan back. So that's my deck profile. I'll see you later.